Today I'm going to talk about the book that kind of destroyed my TBR list. It is 101 Books to Read Before You're Murdered by Sadie Hartmann. It has 91 book recommendations and then 10 author spotlights. And quick disclaimer here, I know Sadie, I've had her on my podcast Chat Cemetery, but she did not give me this book. I bought it through her company's subscription book service called Nightworms, where they send out horror books every month. And because she's one of the co-owners of the company, they included this in one of their recent packages. And basically, this is a fantastic resource for anyone who is looking to read more horror books, who isn't really sure where to start maybe. And look, I've read a bunch of horror books, but the majority of them have been Stephen King books for my podcast. The nice thing about 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered is that it does not include a single Stephen King recommendation because it is all about modern horror. And because King hasn't actually written too much horror lately, it was really fascinating to me that Sadie made that choice to just not include Stephen King, not include any of the classics. So there aren't any Shirley Jackson recommendations in here. Instead, it's all modern horror. And I think that's great because for me, I was like, okay, I've read all of Stephen King's books. Now what do I read? What is next? And what am I going to pick up? Am I going to dig into other authors and read everything they have written like I did with King? Or am I going to sort of just pick and choose based on what sounds entertaining to me? And so far, it's kind of been a combination. I have found some other authors like Grady Hendrix, whose books I will probably end up reading all of. But in this book, there are 91 book recommendations and 10 author spotlights. So technically, there's more than 101 books mentioned in this, but if you're going to check something out from one of the author spotlights, you're probably only going to pick up one book, not a ton of them, just to get a feel for whether or not you like the authors who have spotlights in here. And I think that was kind of a nice little workaround to suggest a few more books because there are some modern horror authors who just have a great body of work. There's a checklist in the back of the book, so you can sort of see everything laid out nicely, and you can even check them off if you're someone who writes in books. I am not, so I went and I made a spreadsheet because I'm a nerd like that, and I went and put like which ones are at the library, which ones I own, which ones aren't either of those things. But either way, I had only read 7 or 8 of the books on this list, not counting anything from the authors in the author spotlights that I had read. So it might be, closer to 10 to 12 out of the 101 that I have had any sort of experience with. So there's a lot on my list now. The way that this book is split up too is sort of by subgenre of horror, which I think is really great because if you're someone who doesn't like supernatural horror, you can kind of just skip through that and go to slashers or serial killers and, find something that might be more up your alley. The nice thing too is the way the book is designed. There are little icons for, trigger warnings or what topics are covered in each of the novels. So there's like a little legend at the beginning of the book, and you really get to see what types of things are going to be present in all of the books, which I think was a nice touch. There's a lot to enjoy from this book, and because it's pretty much a book a page, it's not a super long book. It's, very straightforward. Here's a book recommendation, here's why I'm recommending it, and here's sort of what it's about. Sadie really did a nice job of recommending books that she really enjoyed and really believed in. So it's by no means a complete list of like, here's all of the horror books you should read, or, here are the classics. And for the most part, a lot of those lists will look really similar. So the thing I really liked about this was how different it was with Sadie's recommendations and the fact that it was categorized the way it was, and just the fact that it's easy to navigate and pick and choose. And the checklist in the back, again, really helpful. I just really, really recommend this. It was so much fun to dig into this and read. I pretty much could not put it down. Overall, fantastic reading experience. I highly recommend this for anyone who is trying to get into horror or who is like me and has experience with a lot of older horror novels and maybe wants to look for some more modern stuff. This is 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered. It's fantastic. And I mean, just look at this cover. How could you not want it? That's all I have for you all today. If you plan on checking out the book, let me know in the comments. If you have any horror book recommendations, also feel free to drop those in the comments. I will happily add things to my never-ending to-read list that is either on Goodreads or in my head, combination of both. Either way, thank you all for watching.